Hi, I'm Lane Gray, and today's training session we're going to talk about fundraising fundamentals for nonprofit organizations and volunteer groups. My background is I come from the corporate world in technology and also have done a host of different fundraising campaigns for nonprofit organizations, primarily in the San Francisco Bay Area, raising millions of dollars for these organizations, both new events and ones that actually have happened year after year. With this background, I actually started an organization called Vivanista. And what we do at Vivanista is we actually work with nonprofits and volunteer groups in terms of sharing of best practices and implementing field-tested techniques to actually improve fundraising, because we're all in this together and how we can actually sustain nonprofit organizations. What you'll learn in this session is why fundraising is important, how to maximize website donations, how to drive traffic to your website so you can actually accept those donations, tuning your fundraising campaign specifically to what your nonprofit is trying to achieve, and when to use offline versus online fundraising campaigns, and finally what the roles are for development staff of a nonprofit versus volunteers. The agenda is we'll go through strategies, fundraising on your website, driving traffic, different alternatives, considerations in looking at a fundraiser, and again, those fundraising roles. So first and foremost, why is fundraising important? Well, there are a host of different nonprofits, and more individuals and groups together are creating nonprofits, and so many of them are actually vying for the same donations. So fundraising is extremely important to be able to sustain the organization for years to come. So in terms of fundraising, there's really three goals. One is actually raising money, but two is building a community. Why? Because when you build a community of people who are passionate about your organization, whether that's in terms of members, volunteers, or donors, is that they will stick with you for the long term. So fundraising or building a community is very complementary to fundraising, to actually raising money for the organization. And then lastly, one of the other goals is engaging volunteers. So you can actually expand what you're doing in your fundraising by having a volunteer group side by side with a nonprofit. In terms of looking at your website, there's three really important aspects of your website when it comes to fundraising. One, communicate your mission so people understand why they're there at the website, what you're trying to achieve. Two is drive action, making sure you're actually having people go and do something once they're at your website. And three is to encourage donations. So we're going to actually look at three different websites and see how they're actually implementing these three aspects. First is care. In communicating their mission, we think that they do a great job. It's right there up front and center in terms of what they want to do with poverty and eradicating poverty. Two is driving action. As you can see on this Girl Up campaign, part of the UN Foundation, is the arrow down below is sign the petition, become involved. They're driving action. And then finally, on your website, you want to encourage donations. A donation button should always be front and center in what we call above the fold. That means that when somebody comes to your website, that immediately they see your mission, what you want them to do, and a donation button. So having a donation button right there when somebody arrives at your website is very important. And we feel that this organization, She's the First, does a great job of that. One is that they have a button right there, and two is in their text on the right side of their homepage, they tell you how you can donate, why you want to donate, and who you're donating to. So those are some of the great aspects that we feel are important for a website. Now we're going to talk a little bit about actually driving traffic to the website so you can accept those donations. One of the greatest ways to drive traffic is through a program that Google has put together called Google Grants. And what Google Grants does is that they reach out to nonprofits and they provide those nonprofits advertising grants of up to $10,000 per month that help drive traffic to your website. So that is potentially worth $120,000 per year of driving people to your website. So how is it done? Well, nonprofits using Google Grants can better achieve their goals by attracting those prospective donors. So if you look at these ads on the right side of the screen, these are ads generated through Google Grants. They actually are nonprofits that are advertising to drive people to their website. One of the things that Google Grants won't allow you to do is to advertise product or try to sell something using that grant. But what you do want to do is put forth your mission, and so people then want to come to your site. And once they're at their site, that's where you make sure that you communicate your mission, drive some sort of action, and then encourage donations. How you sign up for Google Grants is, first off, your nonprofit has to be registered as a 501c3. Second is that you can apply at google.com/grants. And the processing, remember, can take up to 5 months. And it isn't necessarily always the case that they will grant this to a nonprofit organization. But as of now, there's over 5,000 nonprofit organizations within their program. Now we'd like to look at some of the different fundraising alternatives, what you should consider when you're actually thinking about a different fundraising campaign. On the left side, we talk about what different types of campaigns there are. Special events, giving circles. A giving circle is when you get a group of individuals together and they all pool their funds and direct those funds to a particular nonprofit. Individual donations, online fundraising, text or cell phone fundraising, and lastly is grant writing. So if we look about the fundraising potential, special events is great in fundraising potential. There is the opportunity to make an awful lot of money through an actual special event. It also is a great tool in terms of community building. Why? Because building volunteers who can actually work on the special event and donors who attend the event, they get up close and personal, you communicate their mission and their long-term constituents. Next is it has a very good level of control because you control every aspect moving forward. Time commitment, as the yellow smiley face alludes to, is there's a lot of time that goes into actually producing a special event. But in terms of volunteer opportunities, if you have volunteers associated with your nonprofit, this is a great way to get them involved. And it's also a great way to attract volunteers if there are special events that they can work on. Next, we're going to look at giving circles. Giving circles in terms of fundraising potential aren't as great because it's a finite amount of money. So say, for example, you want to put a giving circle together and everybody will donate $100 per year and you have 20 people. So that's $2,000. You know exactly what you're going to make. So the fundraising potential isn't as great as with a special event. Community building, yes, you're building community within your giving circle, depending on the number of individuals you have in it. But in terms of expanding that community, there isn't a lot of upside potential. Level of control, spot on. It's easy to control a giving circle. Time commitment, it's very easy. Many giving circles, such as Every Child Foundation in Los Angeles, which started a giving circle which dozens, if not hundreds of other giving circle organizations have modeled theirs after, is that they actually have regular meetings and their participants actually can sit on different committees. So your time commitment can be really low, but you can get your participants as involved as you actually want to. And volunteer opportunities, in a giving circle, there aren't necessarily a lot of volunteer opportunities. Next, we're going to look at individual donations. In terms of fundraising potential, individuals or major donors, there is a great upside potential. If you tap into individuals who really have a passion for what you're doing. In terms of community building, there isn't a lot in terms of individual donations because you're not expanding it too much when you're going one-on-one after these major gifts. Level of control is great because you know where you are in that process of selling or inviting them to actually donate to your organization. Time commitment, There's a lot of time involved in actually producing a great program to go after individual donations. Can be a capital campaign. And so you have to put together, obviously, a very, very professional presentation and meet with those individuals probably on a regular basis. Volunteer opportunities are nominal as well. So if you're looking at a volunteer group that you want to engage, going after individuals is probably not the best route to go. Now we're going to actually look at online. So online donations are really when crowdsourcing, when you actually put something up, and there's a variety of sites that you can actually do that to draw donations to you. Also, online donations is in terms of your website. Fundraising potential, if somebody doesn't know you, there isn't as great of a potential. And there's really no community building in terms of online because they can't touch it, feel it, they're just donating. Level of control, there's really no control over doing this because you really don't know who's necessarily going to come to the site, who's going to get engaged. You can't necessarily guide them. But in terms of time commitment, once you get that site up, it's basically done. So there isn't a lot of time involved. In volunteer opportunities, obviously, online there's none. Now we'll compare that to text and cell phone fundraising campaigns. Very popular in terms of major catastrophes. In terms of fundraising potential, you have really no idea of how much is going to come in. In community building, there's really none because somebody just goes to their cell phone, types in a text message and donates $10. There's not a lot of community building because once they're done of that 10-second process, they're on to the next thing. They feel good about their donation, but they're not necessarily tied to the organization. Level of control, again, you have virtually none. And time commitment, just like online, it's really easy. Once you're set up, it's already done, and there are absolutely no volunteer opportunities. Lastly, in terms of the different fundraising campaign alternatives is grant writing. Grant writing, fundraising potential in grant writing can be huge, and there's, I believe it's grants.gov that has a lot of different grants that are open that individuals or nonprofits can go to and see what grants are out there. In terms of community building, there's none. And level of control, once you actually put that grant proposal together, it's out of your hands. So there isn't a lot of opportunity there to control it tightly. It does take a lot of time. There's a lot of different courses on grant writing, both at Viva Nista and a host of other sites online that talk about actually how to design a grant. And you can, Google that and take a look at all the various reports that you could go through. And there are absolutely no volunteer opportunities. So that really takes us through all the different types of fundraising campaigns. If you're looking at fundraising potential, your best are special events, individuals, and grants. If you're looking at building a community, your best opportunity is special events. If you're looking at level of control, your top are special events, giving circles, and those individual donations. Time commitment, if you're a nonprofit with limited resources, Giving Circle could be a great opportunity, online donations, and even text. And then volunteer opportunities, the best is special events. Next, we're going to actually look at the considerations when you're looking at these various types of fundraising campaigns. Again, down the left side, we talk about special events, giving circles, individual donations, etc. And across the top, we look at geographic appeal, the type of charity that could engage in something like that, and the donation level. So first, we're going to look at geographic appeal. A special event really is great for a nonprofit on a local or regional basis. Why? You wouldn't necessarily do a special event, a gala, for example, for a national charitable organization because you gather people in one spot, and it's probably pretty rare that people will fly in for that event. Giving circles are definitely on a local basis because everybody gathers together and pools their resources. Individual donations, again, is on a local level because you want to have those one-on-one meetings with them and working with them directly. Online donations are really more of a national or even international. Why? Because online is accessible really to anybody. Text or cell phone, that's national or international, and really, major catastrophes is the sweet spot really for text or cell phone donations. And lastly is grant writing. Your geographic appeal is especially local or regional in your city or your state. There are different foundations who do award on a national basis as well, but primarily looking to grant writers on a local basis is the best way. Next, we'll look at the type of charities that each of these fundraising campaigns appeal to. The special event, it's a cause that affects the community. That's the type of charity that would put forth a special event. Giving circles, it could be, since the Giving Circle actually makes the decision on who they designate their funds to, that could be any type of charity that they are passionate about. Individual donations as well. When you go after individual donations to major donors, it's something that they actually are committed to and passionate about. Online, non-participatory charities, ones that you don't really look to have people really involved, are best suited to online donations. As I said previously, text and cell phone donations, major one-time catastrophes, the things that people feel immediate compassion for and want to get involved, but then move on to something else. In grant writing, public-oriented charities are most suitable for grant writing because usually grants are given out to nonprofit organizations that help a host of different people. The type of donation levels that you can expect in terms of these various categories, really on special events on a per event basis, you could expect as low as $10, depending on the type of event, of course, up to $1,000, and many times far beyond that, depending on the type of event. Giving Circles is usually on an annual basis. The Every Child Foundation I mentioned previously in Los Angeles, their annual donation is actually $5,000. That's what each of their 200 members actually donate. But it just fluctuates depending on what the group makes the decision to do. Individual donors, major donors, it's the $1,000 or higher level. Why? Because you don't really want to spend the time and effort to go out and develop a relationship and cultivate a donation for less than that. Really directing the smaller donations through other campaigns, such as a special event. The donation on online, those are usually one-time or could be recurring. There's a lot of online donations for different individuals who are actually doing their own campaign. Maybe it's Relay for Life, or it can be anything where they will put up a page through crowdsourcing and ask people to actually make a donation. So that's more on a one-time basis and can range depending on who the particular donor is. In terms of donation levels on text or cell phones, it's usually just a one-time, not a recurring type of donation. And usually around $10 is the expectation. So you really have to get the word out using that vehicle or that campaign. So you get lots and lots of individuals who are making those donations. And finally, grant writing. It's obviously it's a one-time program that you go after a particular grant. But that program actually can go over multiple years. And those grants should be much more than at the $1,000 level. So your expectations are much higher in terms of if you're going to spend the time and effort going after grants. So just to summarize, in terms of the various considerations, is you need to look at the type of donation level you're going for, the type of charity you are, and how that actually works with the various types of campaigns, and the geographic appeal that you have. That will give you a great indication of which kind of fundraising campaign you should consider. Next, we want to actually look at the different fundraising roles between nonprofit staff and volunteer organizations. This assumes, obviously, that there is a volunteer organization associated with your nonprofit. Nonprofit development staff usually focuses on three things. 1, major donors. 2, grant writing. And 3, event support, providing the support to a volunteer organization, database management, processing of accounts payable and receivable, etc. On the other hand, roles that volunteer organizations do well at are 1, putting together an actual fundraising event, and 2 is member development, and 3 is actually building community. So going outside of the membership and actually being ambassadors for that organization that they're representing. So in summary, there's quite a few different considerations in developing a great fundraising program. 1 is set goals, determining what you actually want to accomplish. We talked about 3 things: raising money, building a community, and engaging volunteers. So what are your goals? Second is leveraging current technology, using things like Google Grants and using online vehicles for your fundraising campaigns. Next is maximize exposure. Make sure that that website of yours is actually has a call to action, is directing them to do something in terms of making a donation when they get to the website, that they can immediately see that, and that you're also communicating your mission. Develop a fundraising campaign that meets the style and goals of your organization. Is your nonprofit a local charity? Do you have a volunteer group that's already associated with your organization? And then, if applicable, if you do have that volunteer group, play to the strengths of the staff and the volunteers. Staff, again, as we said, is really great at grant writing, at cultivating major donors, and at providing the event support, whereas the volunteers are especially good at producing fundraising events, cultivating members, and broadening that community and being ambassadors for the organization. So that concludes our session on fundraising fundamentals. Thank you so much for participating, and if you have any questions, we have the information here that you can contact us directly. Thank you.